What if the biggest reason your life hasn't changed yet is because you're still paying more attention to everyone else than you are to yourself? Think about that for a moment. How many times have you adjusted your goals because someone doubted you? How many times have you stayed quiet because you were afraid of what people might say? How many dreams have you delayed not because you couldn't do them, but because you were too busy trying to please everyone around you? Here's the uncomfortable truth. The moment you start focusing on yourself, some people will become uncomfortable. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because your growth reminds them of the things they're avoiding. Most people live their entire lives reacting to the world. They wake up and immediately check their phone. They scroll through other people's achievements. They compare their progress with someone else's highlight reel. And before the day even begins, they already feel behind. But the people who truly transform their lives do something different. They stop measuring their life through the eyes of others. They start asking a different question. Not what do people expect from me, but what do I expect from myself? That single shift changes everything, because when your focus is on the outside world, your energy becomes scattered. One opinion pulls you here. One criticism pushes you there. One compliment makes you feel powerful, and one negative comment makes you doubt everything. Your direction keeps changing. But when you focus on yourself, something powerful happens. Your standards become internal. Your progress becomes personal. Your growth becomes intentional. Let me tell you a simple story. There was a young professional who spent years trying to impress everyone in his workplace. He stayed late to make people happy. He said yes to every request. He tried to be liked by everyone. But something strange kept happening. Despite all the effort, he still felt invisible. Promotions passed him by. His confidence slowly disappeared. And the more he tried to gain approval, the less respected he felt. One day he made a quiet decision. He stopped chasing approval. Instead, he started chasing improvement. He began investing 1 hour every morning learning new skills. He stopped wasting energy explaining himself to people who didn't understand his vision. He started focusing on becoming better, not becoming liked. At first, nobody noticed. Then something changed. 6 months later, his knowledge had grown, his confidence had changed, his work had improved, and suddenly the same people who once ignored him started asking for his advice. Nothing magical happened. He simply moved his focus from outside to inside, and that is where real transformation begins. Because the moment you stop trying to prove your worth to the world and start building your worth for yourself, your entire life begins to move in a different direction. What if the reason you feel stuck is not because you lack talent, not because you lack opportunity, but because your focus has been scattered in 100 different directions instead of being invested in the one place that actually changes everything yourself? Let me ask you something honestly. How much time do you spend thinking about what other people are doing, what they are saying, how they are living, how fast they are moving, compared to how much time you spend building your own mind, your own discipline, your own future? Most people never realize how expensive distraction really is. They think the real problem is lack of motivation. They think the problem is lack of resources. But the truth is far simpler and far more uncomfortable. The real problem is misdirected focus. Every single day your attention is being pulled in different directions. Social media tells you who is more successful. Friends tell you what you should want. Society tells you what success is supposed to look like. And slowly, without even noticing it, you begin living a life designed by other people's expectations. You chase goals you never truly chose. You worry about opinions that will never build your future. You exhaust your energy trying to control things that were never yours to control in the first place. But the moment you decide to focus on yourself, the rules of the game completely change. Because focusing on yourself is not selfish, it is strategic. It means you stop investing energy in proving your value and start investing energy in increasing your value. Think about the difference. When someone spends their life trying to prove they are smart, every criticism becomes painful. Every mistake becomes embarrassing. Every failure feels like a public humiliation. But when someone focuses on becoming smarter, mistakes become teachers, criticism becomes information, failure becomes training. The same events happen, but the meaning completely changes. There was a young athlete who once said something powerful after losing an important competition. Someone asked him how he could remain calm after such a public defeat. He smiled and said something that reveals the mindset of people who focus on themselves. He said, "I'm not competing against them. I'm competing against the person I was yesterday." That mindset is what separates people who grow from people who stay stuck. Because when your competition is other people, your progress will always feel unstable. There will always be someone ahead of you, someone faster, someone richer, someone more talented. But when your competition is your previous self, something incredible happens. Progress becomes measurable, growth becomes personal, and improvement becomes inevitable. The world may still be noisy, opinions may still exist, distractions may still appear, but none of them have the power to control your direction anymore. Because your focus is no longer on the crowd. Your focus is finally where it has always needed to be, on becoming the strongest version of you. Have you ever noticed how the moment you truly start working on yourself, some people begin to question you? They say you've changed. They say you've become distant. They say you're different than before. And the truth is they're absolutely right, because growth always creates distance between who you used to be and who you are becoming. Most people misunderstand what it means to focus on yourself. They think it means ignoring everyone, isolating yourself, or becoming selfish. But that's not what real focus looks like. Real focus means becoming intentional with your energy. It means recognizing that your time, your attention, and your mental strength are some of the most valuable resources you have. And once you understand that, you stop giving those resources away to things that don't move your life forward. Think about how easily people give away their attention. A single negative comment can stay in someone's mind for an entire day. One small disagreement can ruin their mood for hours. Someone's opinion, someone's judgment, someone's criticism suddenly becomes the center of their emotional world. But here's the question very few people ask. Why are you allowing someone who doesn't control your future to control your focus? People who transform their lives learn something incredibly powerful. They understand that attention is like currency. Wherever you spend it, growth follows. If you spend your attention on negativity, negativity grows. If you spend your attention on comparison, insecurity grows. If you spend your attention on discipline, learning, and improvement, your life grows. The direction of your attention determines the direction of your life. There was a moment in the life of a young entrepreneur when everything around him felt chaotic, his business was struggling. People doubted his ideas. Some even laughed at the risks he was taking. Every day he heard opinions telling him why his vision wouldn't work. For a while, those voices started living inside his head. Every decision felt heavier. Every step felt uncertain. Until one day he asked himself a question that changed everything. What would happen if I stopped listening to every voice except the one pushing me to improve? So he made a decision. He stopped explaining his vision to people who weren't building anything themselves. He stopped wasting time defending his goals. And instead, he focused all his energy on learning, improving, and executing. Months passed, then years. Slowly, the results began to appear. The same people who once questioned his focus began asking how he achieved it. But the truth was simple. He didn't become successful because everyone believed in him. He became successful because he stopped needing them to. The moment you stop chasing approval and start chasing progress, something inside you becomes unshakable. Because your direction is no longer controlled by noise. It is controlled by purpose. And when purpose guides your focus, your life begins to move with a power that most people never experience. Have you ever realized that the people who seem the most confident are not the ones who never face doubt? They are the ones who learned how to stop letting doubt control their direction. Because doubt is normal. Everyone experiences it. Everyone hears that quiet voice that whispers, maybe you're not good enough, maybe this won't work, maybe people will judge you. The difference is not whether that voice exists. The difference is who you choose to listen to. Most people spend their entire lives negotiating with their doubts. They wait until they feel ready. They wait until they feel confident. They wait until they feel certain. But confidence does not come before action. Confidence comes after repeated action. When you start focusing on yourself, one of the first things you discover is how often fear has been quietly shaping your decisions. Fear of embarrassment, fear of criticism, fear of failure. And without realizing it, those fears slowly shrink your life. You choose the safer option instead of the meaningful one. You stay quiet instead of sharing your ideas. You postpone your dreams because the risk of trying feels uncomfortable. But here's the truth that changes everything. Your life does not expand when you feel comfortable. Your life expands when you become stronger than the discomfort. There was a young man who once dreamed of becoming a public speaker. He had powerful ideas, meaningful stories, and a deep desire to inspire people. But there was one problem. Every time he imagined standing in front of an audience, fear completely took over. His heart would race, his hands would shake, his mind would start imagining every possible mistake he could make. So for years he stayed silent. He watched other people speak. He watched other people share their ideas. And every time he saw someone else doing it, he felt two emotions at the same time, inspiration and regret. One day he realized something painful. The fear wasn't disappearing. Waiting wasn't helping. Avoiding the stage was not making him stronger. It was only making his dreams smaller. So he made a decision. Instead of waiting to feel confident, he would start before he felt ready. The first time he spoke, his voice trembled. The second time, he forgot part of what he wanted to say. The third time, he stumbled over his words. But something incredible started happening. Every time he faced the fear, it lost a little bit of its power. Every time he showed up, his courage grew. Slowly, the stage that once terrified him became a place where he felt alive. And the lesson is simple but powerful. Confidence is not something you discover. Confidence is something you build. And the moment you stop waiting for permission, stop waiting for perfect conditions, and start focusing on becoming stronger every single day, you realize something important. The person who has been holding you back the most was never the world. It was the version of you that believed you had to wait. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to stay busy, but how rare it is to actually make progress? Most people wake up every day with a long list of things to do, messages to reply to, tasks to complete, problems to solve, responsibilities to manage. By the time the day ends, they feel exhausted, yet deep inside they know something uncomfortable. They were active, but they didn't move forward. This is one of the biggest traps in life, confusing movement with progress. When you start focusing on yourself, one of the most powerful skills you develop is the ability to separate what feels urgent from what is actually important, because the world is full of urgent things. Notifications feel urgent. Other people's requests feel urgent. Random problems that appear throughout the day feel urgent. But most of those things do not build your future. They only consume your energy. The people who truly transform their lives understand something that most people never learn. They understand that progress is not created by doing more things. Progress is created by doing the right things consistently. Think about someone learning a new skill. If they practice randomly whenever they feel like it, their progress will be slow and unpredictable. But if they focus on improving one small aspect every single day, something powerful begins to happen. Small improvements start stacking. A tiny improvement today, another tomorrow, another next week. At first the change feels invisible, but months later the difference becomes impossible to ignore. This is how real growth works. Not through dramatic overnight change, but through disciplined daily focus. There was a young woman who once decided she wanted to become exceptional in her field. She didn't have special connections. She didn't come from a powerful background. And at the beginning, nobody expected much from her. But she made one simple commitment. Every single day she would improve just one part of her skill. Some days she studied for an hour. Other days she practiced a new technique. Sometimes she simply reviewed her mistakes to understand what went wrong. It didn't look impressive from the outside. No big announcements, no dramatic breakthroughs, just quiet, consistent improvement. Months passed, then a year. Suddenly the same people who once overlooked her started noticing something different. Her knowledge was deeper. Her confidence was stronger. Her results were better. They asked her the same question again and again. What's your secret? But there was no secret. She simply focused on getting a little better every day while everyone else was distracted by everything else. And that is the quiet power of focusing on yourself. You stop chasing attention. You stop chasing approval. You stop chasing shortcuts. Instead, you build something far more powerful. Daily progress. Because when your days are focused on becoming better, your future begins to change in ways that most people never see coming. Have you ever wondered why some people stay consistent with their goals while others start with excitement and then slowly disappear? At the beginning, motivation feels powerful. You feel inspired. You feel ready to change. You promise yourself that this time will be different. But a few days later, something familiar happens. Energy drops. Distractions return. Old habits quietly find their way back into your routine. And suddenly the same goals that once felt exciting start feeling heavy. This is where most people make a critical mistake. They believe the problem is motivation. They think they need more inspiration, more encouragement, more emotional energy to keep going. But the truth is much deeper than that. Motivation is temporary. Discipline is reliable. When you truly start focusing on yourself, you begin to understand that the real power in life does not come from feeling motivated. It comes from building habits that continue even when motivation disappears. Think about the difference. If you only work when you feel inspired, your progress will always depend on your emotions. Some days you will move forward, and other days you will stop completely. But when discipline becomes part of your identity, your actions no longer depend on how you feel. You show up anyway. There was a writer who struggled for years to finish his first book. He had great ideas and a strong passion for storytelling, but every time he tried to write, he waited for the perfect moment. He waited for the perfect mood, the perfect level of inspiration, the perfect burst of creativity. But those moments rarely arrived. Weeks turned into months, and months turned into years without real progress. Then one day, he made a different decision. Instead of waiting to feel inspired, he created a rule for himself. Every morning at the same time, he would sit down and write for 1 hour. It didn't matter if the writing felt brilliant or terrible. It didn't matter if he felt creative or completely empty. The rule was simple. Show up and write. At first it felt uncomfortable. Some days the words barely came out. Some days the pages felt messy and imperfect. But something incredible started happening. The more consistently he showed up, the easier it became to begin. His mind started adapting to the routine. Creativity started appearing more often. Not because he forced inspiration, but because discipline created the conditions for it. Months later, the book that once felt impossible to complete was finally finished. And the lesson is powerful. Success rarely comes from waiting for the perfect moment. It comes from showing up during imperfect ones. The moment you stop asking, do I feel like doing this today? And start asking, is this the person I want to become? Your focus shifts to something far stronger than motivation. It shifts to commitment, and commitment is where real transformation begins. Have you ever noticed that the moment you truly start improving your life, the world suddenly seems full of distractions? Opportunities to waste time appear everywhere. Endless scrolling, endless opinions, endless entertainment. Endless noise pulling your attention away from the very things that could change your future. And the truth is, distraction has never been more powerful than it is today. Because distraction doesn't always look dangerous. Most of the time it looks comfortable. It looks like just 5 more minutes. It looks like one more video, one more conversation, one more delay before starting the work that actually matters. But here is the reality that most people avoid. Distraction is not harmless. Every moment you spend focused on something that does not build your future is a moment you are silently trading away your potential. The problem is not that people don't have dreams. Almost everyone has dreams. The problem is that dreams require focus, and focus requires sacrifice. When you decide to truly focus on yourself, you begin to see something clearly that most people ignore. You realize that you cannot grow while giving equal attention to everything. Growth requires priorities. It requires saying no to things that once felt normal. There was a young man who once asked a mentor why he couldn't make progress in his goals. He worked hard, he stayed busy, and yet his life always seemed to stay in the same place. The mentor asked him a simple question: how many hours a day do you spend building your future? The young man thought for a moment and answered honestly, maybe 1 hour, sometimes less. Then the mentor asked another question: how many hours do you spend on things that don't move your life forward? The young man laughed nervously because he already knew the answer. Several hours every single day. The mentor smiled and said something that stayed with him forever. You don't have a time problem, you have a focus problem. That sentence changed everything, because once he saw the truth, he couldn't ignore it anymore. He began paying attention to how he used his time. He started removing small distractions that once seemed harmless, less mindless scrolling, less pointless arguments, less time spent worrying about what everyone else was doing. And slowly, something powerful began to happen. The same hours that once disappeared every day started producing results. His skills improved, his confidence grew, his direction became clearer. Nothing magical had changed about his circumstances. The only thing that changed was where his attention was going, and that is the hidden power of focus. Your life does not transform because of one giant decision. It transforms because of the small daily decisions about where you place your attention. And the moment your attention begins serving your future instead of feeding your distractions, where your potential finally begins to wake up. Have you ever wondered why some people seem unstoppable while others struggle to move forward no matter how hard they try? It's not because they're luckier. It's not because they have more resources. It's because they have learned the hidden power of boundaries, the ability to protect their energy, time, and focus from everything that doesn't serve their growth. Most people never think about this. They believe life is about doing more, working harder, saying yes to every opportunity. But saying yes to everything is a silent trap. It spreads your energy thin. It keeps you scattered. It keeps you from building momentum in the areas that truly matter. When you start focusing on yourself, you begin to understand that saying no is not rejection. It's protection. It's not selfish, it's essential. Every time you say no to what doesn't align with your vision, you create space for what does. Think about it: a person who constantly reacts to others' demands never has the time to grow. Every day is filled with obligations, distractions, and stress. Their goals slowly fade because they never get the space to nurture them. On the other hand, a person who sets boundaries, even small ones, experiences a profound shift. Their energy is concentrated, their focus is sharp, their progress becomes consistent. There was a young professional who constantly tried to please everyone around him. He stayed late at work. He agreed to every request. He tried to be the go-to person for everyone, and yet he felt stuck. His own goals were neglected. His growth was stunted. He was exhausted. One day he made a choice. He began saying no, not rudely, but with clarity. He stopped overcommitting. He prioritized his own development, his own projects, his own well-being. The first week felt uncomfortable. People questioned him. Some were upset, but he persisted. Months later, something remarkable happened. His focus sharpened, his skills improved faster. People began respecting him not just for what he did for them, but for the standards he maintained for himself. The lesson is clear: growth cannot coexist with a scattered life. The more you protect your energy, the stronger you become. The more you focus on yourself, the faster your life begins to change. When you finally realize that every yes you give to others is a no to yourself, you start living intentionally, moving powerfully, and building a life designed by your own choices. And that is the quiet, unstoppable power of focusing on yourself. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to attract opportunities effortlessly while others work just as hard and achieve far less? It's not luck. It's not connections. It's the way they think, act, and invest in themselves every single day. When you focus on yourself, you begin to understand that your life is a reflection of the habits you build and the mindset you cultivate. Every small choice compounds over time, creating momentum that no external circumstance can match. Most people never see this because they're too busy chasing external validation. They look for praise, approval, or recognition before they've even done the hard work. And when it doesn't come, they give up blaming the world instead of looking inward. But the people who transform their lives don't wait for permission. They don't wait for others to notice. They build quietly, consistently, intentionally. Think about someone learning a craft. The hours they spend practicing in private without recognition or applause are the hours that shape their mastery. Meanwhile, the world only sees the result, the polished skill, the confident performance, the success that seems effortless. There was a young woman who dreamed of starting her own business. At first, she faced skepticism from everyone around her. Friends and family doubted her ideas. Competitors seemed stronger. The market felt crowded. For a while, she let the noise get to her. She compared herself to others. She questioned her own abilities. She almost gave up, but then she made a choice. She stopped focusing on what everyone else thought and started focusing on what she could control: her knowledge, her skills, her daily actions. She studied her craft for hours. She experimented, failed, learned, and tried again. Months turned into years. Every small improvement compounded. Her ideas grew sharper. Her confidence grew stronger. And one day, the results were undeniable. The same people who doubted her now asked for her advice. The opportunities she had once only dreamed about became her reality. The lesson is simple but profound. Your life doesn't change when you wait for others to recognize your potential. Your life changes when you invest in yourself consistently, even when no one is watching. Focus on improving your skills, your mindset, and your habits. Focus on becoming a stronger, wiser, more capable version of yourself. Because when you do, the world has no choice but to take notice, and your life begins to transform in ways you never thought possible. Growth is silent, progress is invisible at first, but the results, they are unstoppable. Have you ever realized that the moment you fully commit to focusing on yourself, everything in your life begins to change, even if nothing around you seems different at first? Because transformation rarely comes from external events. It comes from internal shifts in mindset, focus, and habits. The moment you decide that your energy, your attention, and your growth matter more than pleasing others, you start moving in a completely different direction. Most people live their lives passively. They wait for circumstances to change. They wait for opportunities to appear. They wait for permission to pursue their dreams. And while they wait, life continues, often leaving them behind. But the people who achieve extraordinary results do something radically different. They start waiting. They start building. They start learning. They start improving. Every single day, think about the power of daily action. One small improvement compounded over months creates momentum. One consistent habit repeated every day forms character. One focused mind maintained over time becomes unstoppable. There was a man who once struggled to find direction. He felt overwhelmed by choices, distracted by opinions, and exhausted by constant comparison. For years, he let life happen to him instead of taking control. Then he made a decision that changed everything. He decided to focus entirely on himself, not in arrogance, but in intentional growth. He invested in his skills, his mindset, and his health. He protected his energy. He said no to distractions. He prioritized his future over temporary comfort. At first, the results were invisible. He faced setbacks. He still felt fear and doubt. Some people criticized him. Some questioned his choices. But slowly, over time, the change became undeniable. His confidence grew. His abilities improved. His results multiplied. People who once doubted him began seeking his guidance. Doors that once seemed closed began to open effortlessly. And the lesson is crystal clear. Your life doesn't change because the world finally notices you. Your life changes because you chose to notice yourself first. Your life changes because you chose to become the person capable of handling everything you once dreamed of. When you focus on yourself, you stop reacting to life. You start creating life, you stop chasing approval, you start building influence, you stop being distracted, you start being unstoppable, and in that moment, you realize the most powerful truth of all. The person who can change your life is not anyone else, not circumstances, not luck, it's you. When you decide to focus on yourself, everything else falls into place. Your energy, your decisions, your growth, they all begin to work for you. And that is where true transformation begins, unstoppable, undeniable, and permanent.